What's going on, guys? This is DaWoblefet, and I'm here with a different style of video than I normally do. I'll be talking about the team that I intend to use in the Players' Cup 2 qualifier for this upcoming international challenge. Typically, I don't go through like what sort of teams I use on my channel, even when I was like playing this circuit like super hard, like back in 2018. I don't think I ever did anything like a team report on my particular channel. So this is a little bit new to me. However, I think it's kind of interesting. A lot of times on my channel in particular, I post mechanics-related content. However, I really enjoy actually playing VGC2. I have a lot of fun with it. I really enjoy the feeling of your heart racing as you try to get that last call right. And so I'm going to be playing the IC and hopefully qualifying for Players' Cup 2, assuming I don't do awful, but we'll see how it goes. Last time I qualified for Players' Cup 1 with like 1706, something like that, which is like pretty average, pretty mediocre. 1700 is about what I would be shooting for this time as well. And I'm just trying to qualify, just to keep up with the Joneses, if you will, so I can test to see, if I can still hang in with the other guys. So we'll see how it ends up going. As you can see here, I'm going to be using a modified version, like very, very slightly modified version of Desu's Players' Cup 2 team. If you can see here, this is what originally Desu ran. There's very, very few changes between his and mine. Probably the biggest ones are I'm switching to Choice Band on Rillaboom, and I'm switching to Rindoberry on Primarina, but I'll talk about those here shortly. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into the team. So the reason I wanted to choose this team is partially because it really clicked with me playing on Showdown. It really felt intuitive. I really like the core of Incin, Rillaboom, Primarina with a bulky Trick Room setter. And I really like so I didn't get why Porygon 2 was used for a while. I was just like, it's just as passive as Dusclops, but Dusclops gets better like support moves. And then someone told me, like, what I think is kind of obvious, it is really good versus Dragapult. You are 3 KO'd by Max Dragon, and you don't take any damage from Max Ghost, of course, and so your defense doesn't get lowered. And so it's really, really, I think, powerful in dealing with Dragapult as a Trick Room setter, and that's why it's so good. And that's probably obvious to anyone who's played Series 5 for quite some time, but I really hadn't realized it. And by poking around with Desu's team a little bit in practice, I didn't do too much practice with this team. A lot of just theory modding. It really seems to live up to where it's supposed to be. Like, Porygon 2 is a really fat Pokemon, and it does really, really well. So I'm really happy with it. But generally speaking, also Terrakion and Dragapult. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is a really nice... this lead gives you a lot of flexibility. If they don't lead with a redirection Pokemon, you can just go for a beat up and then max your Terrakion, and then you can just kill things. However, a good majority of the time, you can also max your Dragapult, and then you just have a regular maxed Dragapult. When combined with things like Helping Hand, you can just blow stuff up as well. Like, Helping Hand max move with plus Life Orb that's not intimidated hits really, really hard. And I really like the Life Orb on Dragapult for that reason, because you can just blast through stuff. I think Desu was really wise to include it there rather than on Primarina. Although I can understand switching to Life Orb on Primarina. I think it makes a lot of sense for your, Dragapult just from out the gate is so fast and puts on so much pressure that it's really, really hard to deal with. And by using your Dynamax early to punch holes in the opponent's team, you can then later switch into things like Rillaboom and clean up. And then Dragapult, even, obviously you'd prefer to, if you could, beat up the Terrakion and then just blow through things. However, things like Max Ghost into close combat after a defense drop is also really powerful. So, Terrakion Dragapult is a very cool strategy. It also beats Fake Out really hard because Dragapult can't be faked out, and you can use Beat Up on Terrakion. And also, Terrakion can go for a Helping Hand, max move into Dragapult, so it really does well against initial lead Fake Out. And Sash and Terrakion I also think makes sense. Originally, I was thinking about using Lumberry, because Lumberry would be good against something like Venusaur, for example, and then I realized you can just max grass the Terrakion because they Dynamax their Venusaur quite frequently nowadays. You can tell I'm a little bit out of touch with some trends in the meta, so bear with me as even as I play through my matches in the IC. I expect to be learning as I go along. But yeah, Dragapult, Tracheon seems to be a great V for the IC. It's definitely a known team, and it's a known strategy how this plays. I don't expect to catch very many people off guard with this, but I don't really intend to. This isn't supposed to be like what I prefer usually doing is building a good, unique team. Like a team that is unique, so your opponent doesn't just know everything about it, but is also independently good. Those are the sorts of teams that I like, and they're also really hard to make, but I think they're the best teams. But in this case, I don't have if I probably was going to build some sort of unique team, I'd probably use some combination of Band, Rillaboom, plus Grassy Seed and Magnezone, but I didn't have time to build that. So I went with Desu's team because I think Desu built a very good team here, and I'm really happy with it. Let's talk about a couple of the other Mons. Incineroar is kept the exact same as Desu's spread. This lives a Life Orb, -1, Max Quake from Excadrill. It also is 3-hit KO'd by Ferrothorn's Body Press, or if they have an Iron Defense, it would be 2-hit, or it would survive the hit, and then you could get off 2 Burning Jealousies, hopefully. I thought about putting a little bit more in Special Attack. If you put in 20 in Special Attack, you 2-hit KO with a Ferrothorn directly, and so even if they have a Leftovers or Grassy Terrain turn, they have to protect in order to actually get that extra bit of health back to survive with 1 HP or something like that. However, I didn't think that would actually be useful, and you still get the 2-hit KO 95% of the time or something like that, really high. And I wanted the bulk for other things, so the physical bulk is definitely needed, and the special bulk is there for Venusaur's Max Quake. Life Orb Max Quake does quite a bit to Incineroar. I believe this one lives 7/8 of the time, if I recall correctly, which isn't ideal in my opinion, because you take a lot for that, and the only thing you really get back out of it is potentially a Sun-boosted Flare Blitz or a Parting Shot. It's not a great trade, however, you can force them at least not to click Sleep Powder, which is pretty good, because this team doesn't have any control, they don't have any anti-sleep measures. I don't have safety goggles anywhere. I don't have Lumberry anywhere. The only thing I can really do is max Primarina and go for max Moonblast. That's my only form of sleep control that I've got on this team. But in any case, Incineroar. I also thought about making it not min speed, and I may still do it. I haven't actually locked the team in yet on cartridge, but I think min speed might be better for Tyranitar in particular. So, for example, if I'm facing against Tyranitar plus Bulldoze, and they go for the Bulldoze Lash Out thing that they like to do, having a Parting Shot go off before the Tyranitar, or the Burning Jealousy go off before the Tyranitar, I think is really important. So. I'm a really big fan of Burning Jealousy, both in theory and in practice so far, so been really, really happy with that. Rillaboom is Choice Band. It is max attack, because I don't see any reason why you wouldn't on Rillaboom. I'm 1 point faster than Santi's Rillaboom. His was 84 speed, I'm 92. According to Showdown docs, or Showdown usage, 84 speed is about the max most Rillaboom go, if they're not 252 speed, Jolly, or Adamant, which I would gladly face, because that means the player probably isn't too good. And the moves are the same as what Santi ran. I'm running Superpower over High Horsepower because it one-shots Incineroar at +0, and it hits Dynamax T-Tar for a 1-hit KO without having to use Woodhammer, which is good. And I'm using U-Turn over something like Knockoff because I personally like U-Turn. I could use that versus other Rillaboom. I think this team is relatively Rillaboom weak. Incineroar is very, very good versus it, but the other Pokemon are kind of meh. Porygon 2 is okay. Primarina is not good versus it. Dragapult is okay. Tracheon is not good versus it. So it's got some polarizing matchups there, and having the ability to get off a fast U-Turn into something like Incineroar, I think, is pretty valuable. The bulk is slightly tweaked from Santi's spread. It lives the Incineroar Flare Blitz 15/16 rather than 100%, which I'm fine with. Next Pokemon is Porygon 2. This is a weird one. I don't really know why on Desu's build he had speed. It doesn't make sense to me. At +1, you outspeed T-Tar and some stuff that outspeeds around the T-Tar area, like Adamant T-Tar, Adamant 252 speed T-Tar. So maybe a Togekiss around that area, so you can max Airstream and then be faster than a Togekiss. Maybe he just wanted some speed to be faster than other things that creep around the 60 area, like other Porygon 2 and other Primarina, things like that, but I didn't really get it, so I ended up just cutting those EVs and rearranging them a little bit. I gave Porygon 2 max HP. I don't know why people run Porygon 2 without max HP. You get extra recovery from Rillaboom's grassy terrain when you run max HP, so I don't know why you'd run 244. But I see people do that all the time. I think it's just probably a bad habit that people picked up from like 17. Because in 17, if you were running it on like say fake PG, then you'd run 244 HP, so that way you take less sand damage, things like that. The defense is there, so that way I am not 3-hit KO'd by Dragapult's Life Orb Max Dragon. Obviously, if it's Weakness Pulse and gets that off, it would do more than 50%, but if they're spending their time Max Dragoning into Porygon 2 as I Trick Room and click Recover a bunch of times, then that's a good trade for me, in my opinion. It has a little bit of special attack, so that way Ice Beam and Flare Blitz will KO some Amoonguss. Like, I might be in a situation where I have +1 Porygon 2 and -1 Incineroar. A little bit of special attack helps me guarantee that I can do that. And I also didn't really have any good Spadef goals, so I kind of dumped a little bit in special attack and a little bit extra in Spadef. If I was more prepared, I would understand what Desu spread did in particular, but it has the exact same special bulk, actually a little bit better, and a little bit more special attack. So basically, like I say, taking his speed EVs and distributing them a little bit in different spots. Porygon 2, I'm actually, let me make sure of this. I'm pretty sure this is intended to underspeed Chandelure, but I think Chandelure actually might be 74 stat. No, Chandelure is 76 stat. So I wanted to underspeed Chandelure because I could imagine Chandelure being a problem because Incineroar can't touch it. In Trick Room, it would be able to hit Dragapult for a lot of damage. Terrakion would be okay versus it. Rillaboom would be really bad versus it. Porygon 2 is not great versus it, but at least it can hit it with Thunderbolt to break, like, say, potential Sash or something like that. Obviously, Primarina is good against it, but it's good versus these guys in Trick Room in particular, so I thought underspeeding that would be good. And then it's also generally a unique speed stat. I like having unique speed stats on my Pokemon, so that way I can tell at a glance. Like, for example, if I'm playing against an opposing Porygon 2 and it moves after my Porygon 2, I'm like, oh, okay, that's a slow Porygon 2, so my Primarina obviously will outspeed it. Things like that. Incineroar and Porygon 2 and Primarina all have base 60 speed, but they all have different amounts of investment, so hopefully I'll be able to pinpoint at a glance, like, if my Primarina moves after the opposing Primarina, like, without Trick Room, then I know, okay, my Incineroar is obviously going to definitely be slower in Trick Room. I don't have to worry about a speed tie or anything like that. Otherwise, Porygon 2 is a really fat Pokemon. Good guy. I like Porygon 2. Primarina is the last one. I changed its spread a little bit. It has the same amount of speed. It has max special attack now. And the HP and defense are slightly modified relative to what Desu ran. Desu had more defense in there, but I ended up adding more special attack because I cut the Expert Belt and I added the Rindo Berry. Now, the reason I did this was for a couple reasons. One, Primarina is likely going to be one of my primary max targets in Trick Room. Like, if I get Trick Room up and say I bring my Firewater Grass Core, it's unlikely that I'm going to be Dynamaxing my Rillaboom. And you can Dynamax Porygon 2, but I don't want that to be my primary way of, like, setting things up, basically. So I think that Primarina being bulky and not just fainting to Rillaboom's Grassy Glide after some chip is important. Moreover, it lets me execute certain game plans versus Santee's Colossal team. So, for example, if they lead Colossal Dragapult into Porygon 2 Primarina, they have a few options. Suppose they don't go for Surf turn 1. If they don't go for Surf turn 1, my play is to Trick Room and Max Water the Colossal. So suppose they don't Trick Room. If they just Protect, they'll die. And so that's like best case scenario for me. They won't do that. They could Max Guard and set up like a Light Screen. That's not so bad either. My Primarina is faster than Colossal, so that means in Trick Room, I would always underspeed it. However, it would not have the extra bulk. Excuse me, not the extra bulk, the extra power assigned with it. So it would only be able to do like a Max Grass into my Primarina, which would not be very effective. Well, it would be super effective, but it would not deal very much damage. And you can go for Coals, but which is good for against my Porygon 2. It'll whittle that down. But Regardless, I don't expect Max Guard turn 1 to be a very likely play from them. Potentially maybe a Max Guard and switch to Rillaboom, but that'd be still kind of strange. So I think that Porygon Primarina, if they do decide to attack me, is also still very much in my favor. Suppose they go for a Surf plus Volcalith into, or suppose they go for like a Surf plus a Max Flare into Porygon 2. That would let them survive the Max Water from Primarina. However, I would get up Trick Room, and then I would just recover with Porygon 2, and I would just attack the Colossal again, so they don't really gain any ground. So they're probably not going to Max Flare the Porygon 2. Suppose they Max Rock the Porygon 2. Well, again, my Primarina is completely healthy, and I one-shot their Colossal, and then they can't even send in Rillaboom because Grassy Glide won't knock out Primarina at full, even if I wasn't holding a Rindo Berry, so probably not going to do that either. So it's more likely is they're probably going to try to target the Primarina. If they target the Primarina with Surf plus Max Grass, like I think would be pretty reasonable for them to do, I eat my Rindo Berry, and then I actually survive the attack. So if they use Max Grass, they'll have Surf damage, they'll have Max Overgrowth damage, I'll gain a little bit of HP from Grassy Terrain, and then -1 Choice Spammed Rillaboom's Grassy Glide just barely misses the knockout on me, so far as I can tell. According to the math that I've done, I survived that combination about 87% of the time. Now, I could improve that by cutting back from special attack or cutting back from speed. However, I want to have that max speed so I can force them to go for Surf if they want to outspeed me. Also, so I can outspeed a Moongus. Timid Moongus could be, I think, a big problem for this team, so I can just go for, like, Max Fairy if I'm, like, hyper worried about a Moongus, because I don't have a boosting item on my Primarina, so I can't just knock it out in one hit. So being able to know for sure, okay, I do outspeed this, and I can go for a Max Fairy to neutralize the Moongus, I think is important. And I want max special attack so I can do things like, for example, even on something like Dynamax Dragapult, after Life Orb damage, it's not a great roll to knock them out. It's only 13/16. And something like an Expert Bout would guarantee that easily. You wouldn't even have to give a second thought about that. Obviously, Life Orb would definitely get it. But since I'm holding the Rindo Berry, I can't do so. So I want to have max special attack to deal with that. But in any case, I'd have an 87% chance to live that combination. Also suppose, and also another big thing to keep in mind is this also, like, I could also very easily, in that situation on turn 2 where they're pressuring me with the Grassy Glide, I can go for a Max Guard plus switch to Incineroar, and then I have Fake Out active, and I have the extra Grassy Terrain recovery. So it's all, generally speaking, very, very, very much in my favor for doing this. Suppose they go for Max Coals instead. If they go for Max Coals, it would do slightly less damage to me because it's not super effective. The combination of Surf plus Max Coals plus a -1 Grassy Glide does not knock out Primarina, which is very important. And so I would get 2 KOs because Max Blizzard KOs Rillaboom. And then they would be left with a support Dragapult, +1 Pokemon. I would have a healthy Porygon 2, a healthy Incineroar, and likely a healthy Rillaboom, I think. I think I bring Rillaboom as the last. Or I could bring, like, Terrakion, I guess. But, yeah, in general, I feel really confident about my matchup versus Santi's team. Unless the opponent is competent, which unfortunately I imagine I will play against competent opponents in the IC. That just sort of happens every so often. You have to actually play against decently matched players. However, again, my goal is not to win the IC. I'm not trying to shoot for 1900. I'm shooting for 1700 to get qualified. Last time the cutoff was about a 1650, so 1700 should be really safe. In any case, that's the team that I intend to use for the Players' Cup 2 International Challenge qualifier. I will be recording my matches as well. This is, again, something I don't normally do. I haven't decided if I'm going to do commentary on the matches yet or not. We'll have to see. But anyway, this is the team that I intended to use. I'm really grateful for Desu making his team public because obviously the team is very much just a slightly modified version of what he used. And I, from the practice that I've done so far, I think I'm going to enjoy it during the IC. So stick around if you're interested in watching some of my games. If you like this sort of content, comment down below to let me know. Or if you just like mechanics, comment down below to let me know that you hate this sort of content and you just want to see mechanics out of me because you'd rather watch actually good players battle. I wouldn't blame you one bit. But until next time, have a good one.